welcome everyone to episode 6 of the Fair City Podcast. This is the 14th podcast out on the Fair City Podcast Network, or 15th if I don't get around to editing this in time. Today we have a special guest with us to speak to, but before I get around to that, I suppose I better give my co-host a bit of an intro. He is the Batman to my Alfred, the Iron Man to my Jarvis, and the founder of the Fair City Podcast Network, Mr. David Stobie.
Hello, what up guys?
Hey buddy, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, good man, yeah.
Good.
Was that intro okay? Was it?
It was familiar.
Yeah. It's pretty similar to like what you do, just in reverse.
Oh yeah?
I put a lot of thought in it, you can tell. Were you just waiting for me to slate you?
Pretty much, yeah. I was.
So what have you been up to this week?
I discovered The Greatest Showman.
Oh, here we go.
Which is fantastic. I love it. I'm just such a sucker for that, to be honest.
I know. Yeah, I watched it too, and annoyingly, it was all right.
Yeah, we spookily watched it in the same night.
It was really weird.
It wasn't like I said, Steve, I'm watching The Greatest Showman.
No, you dropped in the chat the next day. It was like, oh, I did this last night. I was like, no fucking way. So did I. That's ridiculous.
Other than that, work, and I was recording the Buff Geek podcast on Thursday night.
So you were.
Retro games
was that?
It turns out it was retro style games, not actual classic retro games like Pac-Man, Pong.
So it was games you didn't even know what you were doing then. So it was like
didn't have a clue.
First time playing.
They didn't have instructions. There was nothing. It was like a collection of uni projects.
Oh no.
C- uni projects.
Oh dear. Oh well. Well, I'll give that a listen at some point.
What about you? What have you been up to?
Oh man, what have I been doing? A bit of gardening, just masses of housework, working. Yeah, okay, I'll shut up. Nothing exciting whatsoever.
Oh, come on, you've been doing something exciting, surely. You watched The Greatest Showman.
No. I did. And football, it's a World Cup. I've been watching World Cup pretty much 24/7. Yeah, you fell asleep now, yeah. Lots of similarities here, common tangents. Anyway, never mind, enough about us. So, we have a special guest on with us this week. He hails from across the pond, as we like to say, which is on the other side of the Atlantic. We are pleased today to be joined by Zach of the Round Earther Society podcast.
Woo! Thank you very much for having me, guys.
So, first thing I was going to straight jump in, and it's a very British thing we always ask, how's the weather with you?
Oh, it's great out here. No, it's 90s all the time now.
Now, this is, I see you boys speak Fahrenheit,
oh, yeah,
we talk
speak,
centigrade,
yeah.
so this all gets messed up in my head, yeah. So, that sounds to me something crazy like mid-30s centigrade? Proper hot.
Yeah, it's pretty freaking hot.
It's pretty toasty, yeah. A good day to be indoors.
Yeah, it's about 90s, about 32 centigrade, so...
Yeah, I think we broke 20 today, and this is warm enough for us.
When I got in my car earlier, it had been sitting baking in the heat. So I got in and it was and the aircon's broken, and it said 30. But as soon as you start moving, it gives you a more realistic number, and it dropped to like 26 or something like that. And when I was sitting in traffic, I was melting, absolutely, and it was like still sitting at 26. I'm going to get like one arm burnt and one arm's going to be pale because I had my hand hanging out the window, not even thinking about
Classic car tan.
Popeye tan.
And this is a cool week. Last week it was hitting over 100, so that's like 37, 38.
Oh, no thanks. I'm out. Now, whereabouts exactly in America are you? I have yet to figure that out.
We are in Kansas City, Kansas. We're in a suburb of Kansas City, so real exciting place to be.
Yeah. Well, I did. You said about 6 hours difference, so I knew fine you weren't East Coast, and I knew you weren't West Coast. Because we can tell a lot of that quite easy with the way when shows are broadcast and timing differences and stuff. So we know that, either coast. It's how they split the middle part of America, as I like to call it. That I'm never normally sure where people are and stuff.
Yeah, we're right smack.
But it's that massive.
Kansas is good for runners, I think. It's pretty flat, isn't it?
It's pretty damn flat. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Kansas Marathon, I'd be quite happy with that, except for the whole marathon part.
Kansas, where Superman was raised.
What?
Where Superman was raised.
Was he Kansas?
Was he Kansas?
Yeah, I believe so.
Was he? Yeah, it was meant to be. Yeah,
I was thinking more
it
Dorothy, Wizard of Oz, but really,
Oh, no.
maybe Superman's a better, a geekier way for me to go, you know?
Yeah. Oh, dear. Cool. So, give us a quick summary of what your podcast is about, Zach.
Sure. I lean towards saying it's a political podcast, but it's not really. What we try and do every week, to the best of our ability, is ask some kind of question that we think is at the very least pretty difficult to answer. We ask a lot of questions that don't really have answers. So we've done episodes on, is God real? Things like, when does free speech and hate speech, where do those diverge? And all kinds of things. We've also done episodes on conspiracy theories, Bigfoot, all kinds of stuff. So we talk about whatever we want, but we try and do something at least a little bit cerebral every week.
And is that sort of pre-planned? Is that something you'd set out in the early days and go, this is exactly what I want to talk about? And you got together with Jesse and says, right, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Or is it just evolved through time?
I would say, when we started, I think we had a more political idea. We thought it was going to be more political than it was. Or at least than it has ended up being. Now, we talk political issues, but our shtick, our original shtick was Jesse's right-wing conservative, and I'm fairly far left-wing. And so we thought it'd be interesting to approach questions from completely different perspectives and come back and just talk about it. So when we pick what we're going to talk about and we go and sit down to do the show, I have no idea what Jesse's going to say, and Jesse has no idea what I'm going to say.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So you both come into it quite fresh and you just roll with it and see how it goes.
Yeah.
So it's a natural kind of discussion. I like that, because we've had this debate before about whether we advise people of what we're going to talk about beforehand when asked the question, or if we come in fresh. And I prefer the fresh approach, where you can just give a totally natural, reactive response rather than a pre-planned one.
Yeah, and there are times where we have a topic in mind, but the conversation just goes elsewhere, and we'll throw it in the trash and just talk about whatever we get to.
Yeah, there's a couple episodes. What is it? Episode 2 and 3. 2, which is Perfect Society Part 2. I think it was about the 40-minute mark before you'd actually got on to Part 4.
Yeah.
Because you've been talking about other stuff.
Yeah.
And then Episode 3, which is God is Real, it was the 50-minute mark before I think Jesse turned around and said to you, we better talk about our topic then.
That's usually what happens, yeah. Sometimes those tangents get so big that the episode never even really happens. It's just one long tangent string of them. So...
Well, normally you expect a tangent to be like maybe 5 minutes at the most. You guys go on wild ones.
Yeah, we go on. we dive pretty deep into those tangents.
I would say a 5-minute tangent is pretty short, if I was honest. Maybe that's me, but
yeah,
our tangents will go 20, 30 minutes, whole episode, whatever happens.
So you're going back to what you said, that you and Jesse obviously come from very, well, maybe very different backgrounds, but your ideas are very one side versus another. But from what I've listened to so far, and when you're talking about it, you're both very respectful about each other's position on things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's part of the reason we wanted to start, is because, at least in America right now, things are so deeply polarized politically. And, we worked together and we were friends, and we found that we could have productive political conversations between two people who have very different viewpoints. So we kind of wanted to, we thought that was an interesting concept, but also we wanted to show that it's still possible to have two people who disagree and still respect each other and find respect even in those disagreements, but yeah, we really get along really well, even though we're super polar opposites politically.
Is that quite a common thing? Do you find that, even in day-to-day life or work, politics is quite a highly talked about subject where you are?
Yeah, big time. With everything going on with Trump and all that, everyone has decided to become political now, and now you got to deal with a bunch of dumbasses that weren't political before and don't know what they're talking about, because I've been super politically inclined since I was like 16 years old, and Jesse has always been really involved in politics. He has a small publishing company, and he writes articles and things like that about political and social issues, and he's been doing that for a long time, so we're both pretty political veterans. But right now everyone thinks they know shit, and it's very stressful. I've actually removed myself from a lot of current events because it stresses me out too much. People are just so fucking stupid, and I can't handle it.
So I don't know what you find round about here, but I mean, so we're kind of unique because we're up in Scotland, and Scotland's an devolved parliament from Westminster, so we control a lot of our own issues, but we're still very much tied to the Great British political system. Sure. And there's a bit of it's almost like a small internal fight up here. You're either pro-Scotland and you vote SNP, Scottish National Party, or you'll vote one of the traditional Westminster parties. And I don't know about you, but I find a lot of people don't like talking politics up here, very much for that one reason.
Except when the big events happen. So when Brexit happened, everyone was political, and I mean heated political. You had friendships breaking apart. You had, like loads of discussions just going awry all the time. And then you had the same with the independence vote as well, Scottish independence. And so I am one of those dumbasses who had an opinion only for that event, pretty much, and the rest of the time I'm quite
passive about it.
Yeah, I am. I'm very much so.
I think we hear more about Trump in our media than we do our own political system at the moment. Yeah. Because he has that power over the media. He is the story.
Yeah, it's like you said with Brexit, when these big disruptor events happen, all of a sudden everyone gets sucked in, and you have all these people that weren't involved before, or maybe don't understand the bigger picture. And now, I want people to go out and, vote and do their thing, but you've got all these people that don't know about anything else. They just know about this one topic. And so, like, Brexit, that was a huge thing for you guys. Big decision, big disruptor of what's been going on. And now we've got a disruptor in the White House 24/7. Because every day it's something new that's just off the wall, not what you expected. And so now everything's political all the time. At least that's been my experience.
In the lead up to him getting voted in, over here it was very much Donald Trump's running for president, he's never going to get in. And it just became, I wouldn't say a running joke, that's maybe not the right way to put it, but I never believed in any way that he was ever going to win.
It was a massive kind of sense of disbelief throughout the whole thing, I think. Yeah.
Was that kind of similar over with you? It
was a big upset. Yeah. I don't even think Donald Trump supporters thought he was going to win. I don't think he thought he was going to win. And so, when we were watching on election night, me and my friends, it was just, I know to some people it was the greatest day ever, but it was a little bit terrifying.
Yeah.
We've just trusted this fucking guy to, lead the country, and that just seemed like such a poor call, and still seems like it. But
Well, he came in swinging from day one, did he not? He'd take you out of the Trans-Pacific Agreement on his first day in the office, and a lot of things that he said he was going to do. I mean, that's the only thing that I can say for him so far, and we're very much outsiders on this, so this is just a small
a media
view.
perception. Almost,
he does come across very non-establishment. He had this idea, he went with it, people voted for it, and now he's in there. He's like, but I don't care what the rules are. I said I was going to do this. I'm making it happen. I am doing it.
Yeah. That's, I mean, one thing I will, give to his credit, I guess, much to my chagrin, is that he has gotten a lot done in his time in office. He's really pushed hard on the issues he said he was going to push hard on. But unfortunately, I disagree with almost all of his policy decisions. He pulled out of the climate agreement, the Paris Agreement, which was I thought was a big one. Yeah, I thought was a disaster. And actually, his Secretary of State at the time, because I don't know if you guys know this, he fires everyone all the time. Like every day,
we hear bits and pieces. Yeah.
Every day someone gets fired. We've gone through. This is our second Secretary of State since he's been in office, but the old one was a CEO of ExxonMobil, Rex Tillerson. And even he said we shouldn't pull out of the climate agreement. And I'm like, you've got this big oil guy telling you not to do this, and you're still going to do it. That was a very stressful day. But yeah, he does what he says he's going to do. I mean, to an extent. But he also has a disconnected relationship with the truth. So what he says and what he does, they don't match up perfectly, because I don't think he knows what he's saying half the time.
Or he forgets, or there was the whole, he deleted a tweet, and is there not some kind of rule that if anything goes on the official POTUS Twitter, it's not allowed to be deleted? Have I got that right?
I'm not sure.
It breaks. You're not sure. Okay, I'm sure. Well, this is how they're reporting over here. From what I remember, the problem was that if anything goes up there, it's meant to stay there forevermore, because if it's almost like you're deleting evidence type.
Yeah,
thing. It's how the media were spinning it. And this tweet had gone up, and he had deleted it, and there was a big hoo-ha about it. Well, over here, obviously, if you never heard about it, it couldn't have been that bad where you were, but over here we're like, oh my god, he's doing all this stuff. So it's something different. It certainly is.
Someone needs to take that man's phone away from him.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He just loves getting in fights online. He doesn't matter, does he?
I don't know whose call that was. We're like, let him keep it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's not fine.
No.
I can imagine it though. It's like, Mr. Trump, I need your phone, sir. You're fired.
You got no hope.
You
just have to deal with it. So what, you got another 2.5 years?
Yeah, so 2020 will be the next one. So
unless he passes a law that says he can stay in power forevermore, and then pass it down the line in the Trump family,
It's scary, but I wouldn't be surprised if he tried it. I really think he'd
almost
love
creating
to be,
the royal family.
He'd love to be God Emperor for life. And there are a lot of people here who would fucking dig it too. And it's like, oh my god, I just can't. The children that are growing up now, I feel like are not going to realize that this is not normal. This is not what happens. This is not, and I feel like, I don't know, that if kids grow up thinking this is normal, then we're going to have a string of really poor decisions coming down. And that's like Kanye 2024. Like, that's like...
We seen the Kanye for 2020 thing over here.
Yeah.
That blew up enough that it was like, no way is he going to run.
I'm voting for The Rock.
Right? Yeah.
The man who can do no wrong.
Exactly.
But no, I mean, Kanye has since said he's not going to run until Donald Trump's out of office because he's a Trump supporter.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, fuck. If Kanye gets elected, I'm moving.
Yeah, a bit of final straw.
It's nice over here.
Yeah.
One day of the year.
There's only so much you can do. I do my best to put forth a positive message, but if people can't, I can't save the whole country. If it goes down the toilet, I've got to just abandon shit.
You've talked about that a few times, about how you find that the two-party system is very much a problem in itself in America. But I mean, I don't know how many other. I'm not massively into politics throughout the world. We're a little bit more. We've got a few more parties, but in reality, it almost boils down to two: is either Labour or Conservative. Mm-hmm. It's red and blue, and they tend to be on just a cycle. It rotates through one party has to do something, the other half don't like it, and eventually they get voted out and it swings. And it just has this constantly rotating effect. Is that kind of similar in America?
Yeah.
I think people just get fed up after a while and then just vote the other way.
Yeah, I think this time was a little bit different, but typically, I think people get sick of because no one's policies work the way they say they're going to work. And so, Obama did his big healthcare reform. Well, that didn't work exactly the way he said it was going to work. So people are, fed up with the Democratic lies or whatever. And so they go conservative. And then the conservatives put in a bunch of tax cuts and shit. And the economy hits the tank. And everyone's fed up with conservative nonsense now. And it just goes back and forth. And it's interesting that you guys have a system that opens the way for more parties. And it still ends up rotating between two. Sort of a...
Pretty much,
yeah. But the difference here is as far as what I can tell, our right wing is a lot farther right wing than your guys' conservatives.
It's like we've got conservatives.
So yeah, I can.
But,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just when you're saying it opens up the way to new parties, there's lots of new parties come and go. Like the Stark Raven Looney Party, for example.
Oh, they're hilarious.
Just silly things like that. But they come and go, and it always ends up back down to really four,
two.
but really two.
Yeah. So yeah.
Is it four?
So the SNP have the third largest seat holding in Westminster, but because they only ever get representation from Scotland, they can never. Well, it doesn't look like they're ever going to grow in a party that can actually hold any form of power. They then are sort of the Lib Democrats, who were at the time the third biggest party. But the two of them, even if you combined everything they got, wouldn't even scratch the surface of either of the big two. So it is a very open system, and there are lots of other parties that can come in, and lots of independents run in local areas. And I think last time round, about 3 or 4 independents actually got the seat in their area. Because people get that disillusioned, they just vote for somebody they know for the local area rather than somebody who's affiliated with a party. I mean, here, the person who represents the SNP where I live, she doesn't live in this area. I've never seen her. Mm-hmm. She's some lawyer who lives in a city, 50 miles away. But she just happens to be the person who's representing our area and stuff. So I can see why people vote for local people.
Yeah, people feel like just vote party lines, pretty consistently, and that's really, really not good. That's not what we want, because we end up having Donald Trump as president, and and these people who have been what I would call real, conservatives who are reasonable, well-meaning people, ended up voting for this guy, and that's just a huge shock. I mean, he swept with the evangelical Christian vote here, which is just a shock to me. I mean, the guy's covered up how many affairs with porn stars and all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, this is our number one evangelical choice. That see, I mean, I think people are pretty party blind here. honestly.
We get a little bit of that here, particularly in the last couple of years with Brexit and the independence vote and stuff. What we get a lot of people doing is tactically voting. So the reality is, in most places in the UK, you've got maybe two parties are running for the seat, and yeah, okay, there's 10 candidates, but there's only a good chance of one's going to win it resoundingly, or there's going to be two people in a runoff for a seat, and you either vote. If it's your guy and you're happy with that, that's fine. You can vote for them. But if not, what everyone else does is vote for the lesser of two evils.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if any of that happens, or do you think America's pretty good at sticking? I'm a Republican and I will vote Republican and I will believe in that.
I think this last, at least the presidential vote, people felt like they were making a lesser of two evils choice. Because I'm a left winger. Did I like Hillary Clinton? No, not particularly. I think she's kind of a frigid bitch, but
makes it sound like you've hit on her at a party.
Didn't go well.
But I was just like, at least I know what she's gonna do. She's not going to do anything that's going to go super against the grain. And so I was like, well, obviously that's the choice, because especially since he's a conservative, if he goes against the grain, it's going to go really conservative, and that's what I really don't want. And so, yeah, I think it was a lesser of two evils vote this time. Normally, I think it's a party line thing. Although, I think if the Democrats had put forward a better candidate, we would have been in a totally different spot than where we are right now. Which I think is a pretty not a good spot to be in.
I just want to point out, this tangent has been a lot longer than 5 minutes.
That's totally my fault. I'm meant to be running the show today, and I've just gone in deep. I'm like, I'm asking this question, but let's go. Yeah, what's going on here? What's going on? So yeah, sorry, we have digressed massively. We are meant to be talking about your show and you specifically, but I suppose
your passions as well.
Yeah, exactly. And this is clearly one of them. It does come through on the episodes. Do you have to find you put quite a lot of research into each episode before you make them, or are you and Jesse pretty much just you turn up and you know what you're going to talk about and you just roll with it?
It depends on the topic. So we try not to have off the cuff conversations about things that are super heavily reliant on, let's say, numbers or statistics or things like that. So we try not to have offhand conversations about, let's say guns or something, where we have to know gun violence statistics. We have to know, laws in other countries to compare them to. We have to know a bunch of stuff. So, but when we talk about something like free speech, well, I mean, how many real facts do you need? It's mostly a philosophical topic, I think. So we split it. A lot of times there's no research. Sometimes there is. It depends on the topic, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, A Perfect Society, what you started off with, that sounded like you were very, very heavily prepared before you went into recording, because you both had this idea of how you want to create your perfect society. I mean that might just be the way it came across when I was listening back, but that one sounded like a lot of time had gone into both of you creating how you wanted to build this.
Yeah, that one we did do a lot of work on, because we wanted to set up kind of where we were both coming from. We thought that's why we did that for our first episode, is to show, what our ideals are exactly. So they know that, A, that me and him are not the same, and B, that just establish the direction we're going to be coming from. That's why we did that first.
Have you, in the sort of first, what, you've been about 6-7 months you've been recording now?
Since last October, so we've done about 20 episodes. We've missed a couple weeks here and there, but we've done 20. We just released our 20th episode.
Have you had to deal with any negative feedback in that time?
Not a ton. We have people who tell us we're fake news or
that is the buzzword of the last year.
That we're somehow left slanted, but that's not the case. So, but no, people are generally, I think, we try and be extremely fair about all the ideas we discuss. We try and be, and even if, let's say, both of us agree on something, one of us will try and represent the other side fairly, and we try not to build straw men, and so we take a lot of care in how we discuss things so as to not alienate people too much.
Yeah, I've seen that in your latest tweet, because you were like, if you don't like what we're saying, give us a message, kind of thing. And then Doug and Anthony from Who's Right were like, almost like encouraging people, like, yeah, check these guys out, and if you don't, if you don't like it, let us know.
Yeah, we like it. We have no problem. I mean, and I think I've said this on the show: is fuck, if you really have a problem with something we say, write us an email, detail your position. I'll read it out loud. I'll have you come on. I don't care. Because, we really care about, we want a diverse set of opinions and all the ideas to be represented. I firmly believe that Jesse would be on board to have a white supremacist on the show, honestly. I'd be on board. I'd do it. Even though we try not to upset people too much, well, I mean, we don't refrain from upsetting people. We try and be fair. We entertain a lot of ideas that maybe a lot of people wouldn't entertain, I would say. And so we want to do our best to respond to anything that comes in, because obviously we value everybody and we want to do the best show we can.
And it's still a form of feedback. The first thing, is like, oh, good, someone's listened. So, right, well, what are they talking about? It's a bit of validation if they're agreeing with you, and even if not, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, and we're in touch with anybody who gets in contact with us gets a response. Absolutely, I email everyone back. I message everyone back on Facebook. It's all taken care of. So people who listen know it's very interactive. They can get in touch with us if they really have something they need to say.
That is, you actually mentioned that as part of your intro, is it not? And if you think there's something stupid that we say, right in. It's in the first couple of minutes every episode, which is great. Also on that intro bit, now I've not heard every episode yet, but there's the intro parts where it sound like Matthew McConaughey and Richard Attenborough.
Yeah.
Is that who does that for you? Did you get someone to do it for you, or is that one of you guys?
No, we hired people to do that who sounded like Matthew McConaughey and David Attenborough. Yeah.
David Attenborough. Yeah. No, Richard.
We hired people to do that. So we have the 3 intros in rotation because we couldn't decide on just one.
So there's another one I haven't heard yet. Oh.
Well, there's the first one that's a reggae intro on our very.
I did. Yeah. I did hear that one. Yeah. So is that the 3 that you just put in rotation?
Yeah, we just put them in rotation, and there will probably be more because I spent a lot of time playing with intros when we first started. Those were just the 3 that made the cut that ended up being put in. So
that's genius, though. Like hiring someone to do it. That's brilliant because I can't shift this accent, so I can't pretend to be anyone else. Maybe like Robert Carlyle or Ewan McGregor, but that's not exotic. Well, it is actually. That'd be pretty sweet.
We'll take it.
Alan Cumming lives 10 minutes outside of Perth or something like that. Or he's got a house 10 minutes outside of Perth, so just knocking his door window. Go and say this quick, thanks, bye.
Don't even tell him why we're using it. So when you first got into podcasting, what was your aspirations or your goal? Did you have an idea before you even started recording where you were going to go with it?
We wanted to be. I don't know. I don't know exactly how to phrase it but we wanted to show that people can still have conversations from different sides of the aisle and come to some kind of mutual understanding and agreement, because we really felt like the dialogue had broken down between the two sides. And Jesse and I are very quick to criticize the extremist movements on both sides, because both of them are dangerous and awful in different ways. So we wanted to be sort of, let's say, a light in the darkness for maybe some more rational thought, and try and pull back from this extremism that's running so rampant, both in the United States and now in Europe. It's spread too with, I don't know, I know France, there was a really far right wing, I think it's a prime minister that someone was running. I don't believe she won, but
Marine Le Pen.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was very close. She ended up in the final?
Yeah,
I think
it was the final two.
It's Macron that's in, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't think the actual final runoff was particularly close, but the fact she made the final two, I think, was the most surprising thing about it.
It was big news over here too. Yeah.
Yeah. And Poland's current government is pretty right-wing. And there's another...
Was it Austria as well?
I was going to say Switzerland, but it's one of the two. Mm-hmm. Last time round they voted, they were in danger of having a really quite right-wing party in power as well. So you're quite... Yeah, you're right. I think there does seem to be a bit of a resurgence. And it's not just a little bit right-wing. It's like pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it seems to me like this rise in at least right-wing extremism is a result of, the conflict in the Middle East and immigration and all that stuff. I think a lot of it's fed by, fear and some xenophobia, obviously, but and it's happening here too, and it's very scary to see the world go down that road again. We've been there. We've been down that far right extremist route, and it's not pleasant. We've been down a far left extremist route, and it's also very unpleasant. So why we're revisiting these old ideas is a mystery to me.
Kind of got to try and find the happy medium somewhere, eh?
Yeah.
One thing I want to know is, what made you choose the name Round Earthers Society for your podcast? Where'd that come from?
That was a very long discussion. It took us months to decide on a name.
Yeah.
And I think we ended up, we were making fun of flat earthers at one point, because I don't know how prominent flat earth theory is over there, but it seems like there's a lot of them over here. And we're just making fun of flat earthers, and we're like, we're round earthers, and
you hear it getting touted occasionally, but it's not that massive.
It's almost a joke in a way. Like, there was a flat earthers tweet where they'd said something about, we've got believers all around the globe, and there was someone else that had put, say that again really slowly. So,
yeah, it was quite funny.
They're kind of this. They almost seem like a joke, to be honest. Kind of like Scientology was at one point as well. It's that kind of. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like people who believe it really believe it in a way.
Yeah.
But just the impression I get anyway from my limited exposure to these sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrifying that these ideas are still being pushed. I mean, when are we going to get over it?
Probably never.
And they're like, there's no evidence that the Earth is round, and Tim Peake's looking out of his satellite space station going,
I have video proof here.
You know what? I can see it.
I don't know if you heard about this.
It's a live feed.
But a guy in Nevada here built a rocket and launched himself into space so he could prove that the Earth was flat.
No.
Yeah.
I heard he was doing it. I didn't realise he'd done it.
Oh, that's amazing.
So what happened?
Well,
did he come back and go like, I don't want to talk about it?
Well, this guy was like in his 60s. He built the rocket himself. And his first one, I believe, did not go very well. The launch did not go as planned. And the second one, I think he made it, but there was an issue on the way down and he injured himself in some way. But I haven't heard his thoughts on what he discovered in space.
see, I'd be if I really believed the Earth was flat, I'd be scared to propel myself up in case I hit it too hard and sent everyone flying. You know,
The wrong side of a tip.
like tipping a plate. You know.
Oh dear.
That's just the way my mind works, I guess. And that's without energy drinks. There's no unofficial sponsor this week. I'm not drinking it.
Normally it's your...
It gives me the gut rot.
Yeah. You've had to give it up on that.
Yeah, I have. It was giving me unpleasant side effects. They were okay for me, but they were unpleasant for other people, so...
The one thing that you've mentioned a couple of times on the podcast, and I was going to ask you about, was sort of lost audio. Have you managed to? Has there been a couple of recordings that, for whatever reason, never made it?
Our very first episode never made it because we recorded and it was not bad. We just glanced over a lot of really important things, and we didn't want, we talked about things like, racism and sexism and stuff like that, and we just felt like we shouldn't release our first episode with such polarizing content. So we dropped that one. The other times we've lost audio, we'll say lost, are... I don't know how much you guys have listened to, but both Jesse and I, more so me, are very open and honest on our show. I talk a lot about my personal life and what's going on and issues I'm having. And so there have been times where we've gotten 30 minutes in, and I've been like, you know what? I probably shouldn't have said that. Because even though it's very personal and I try and, talk as in depth as I can about whatever's going on, I never want to call anybody out or make anyone feel uncomfortable. So if I know I have friends that listen to the show, and so we take stuff out if we feel like it might hint towards who we're talking about.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So do you find the podcasting kind of helps you talk about those kind of things as well? It's
therapeutic, and ideally, we'd like it to, when we talk about that kind of stuff, we'd like it to help other people too. I don't know. We did a whole episode with some guys called the Better Ideas Podcast. We both released the same episode. And me and one of the other guys, we went in depth about just kind of issues with depression and how we felt, how depression feels for people who haven't struggled with that at all. And then also, I talked a lot about what I felt like if you were struggling with things, what you should do, where your obligations lie, things like that. Just so yeah, we try and be open and honest about our personal experiences.
Yeah, and I guess like you're saying, it's very therapeutic because one of the key things is to talk about it. I believe, having never suffered from depression, I don't know, but I know other people have suffered from anxiety and things like that, and they're told, talk about it. Put it on, go on social media, post an update if you feel not great, phone someone. So yeah, I think it's great, and I think it's a good way to encourage others, like you're saying, to talk about it.
Yeah.
Even start their own podcast to talk about it, or just sit with friends, and listen to other people's struggles as well. And yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, and I've been working on a mental health podcast that's going to be coming out soon.
Excellent.
That is going to be focused primarily on that aspect of things. So
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I really like that idea.
We want to. The whole concept is just that I want to get other people on to talk about what they've been through with their struggles with just mental health issues or whatever it is. So I can get a number of people, and just basically a big long way to say, you know, hey, you're not alone out there. Like, other people feel like shit all the time too. Like, so. Yeah.
And that's just in development? You haven't recorded it?
That's in development, but it's coming. It's greenlit. It's coming out. It's not just.
I think that's I think that's another good kind of natural progression of podcasting as well. Is you might have ideas, or you might want to talk about something that doesn't quite fit in with what you're doing, which is where this came from as well.
Yeah.
And you don't want to, like in our situation, the Buff Geek podcast, we didn't run it. We didn't want to tell him how to run his show, you know. So that's where this was born from, and it's a great idea to kind of not limit yourself to just talking about your topic, but being able to branch out like that. So no, that's really good.
Yeah, and Jesse does another show as well about like old video games and old movies and stuff. I mean, there's stuff we both really like to talk about that doesn't fit in perfectly with the narrative. So we want to.
So you're each going to have your own outlets that you can talk about what you want, and then you can come together for Round Earthers and cover everything off, really.
Yeah.
Have you got quite a strict recording schedule with Round Earthers, or have you just been pretty flexible on that?
We try and record every weekend. So once a week. It's just a matter of whether I end up getting it edited and releasing it. It's just 90% of the time, if we're late, it's my fault because I just don't.
I can totally sympathise with that one.
Yeah.
Editing can be such a struggle. Like, sometimes if I've got to edit the podcast, depends on which one it is. But sometimes it's like, I'll do another 10 minutes tonight, you know?
Yeah.
It's like an hour and a half.
I once did an editing for the American football cast, and what I did is making a point of cutting out every time somebody paused and went, and then carried on their sentence. I think it must have taken me about 3.5 hours to edit something that was only about 40 minutes long. And I was like, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
That is just a horrific waste of time.
That's crazy.
So,
although I think I've found, depending on the podcast, like our episode 2, we've talked about episode 2 so many times. It was a Skype chat, but there was so much delay, it was horrific, but we managed to stitch something together. It just took me a long time. But I think generally probably twice as long as the podcast, potentially, to deal with it.
Yeah.
Twice as long as the recording.
And we've also had some problems of bleed, you know, like noise coming out of a headphone that the microphone picks up, and you get like an echo on the recording track. So when you've got to merge the two together, you sometimes have problems matching it all up.
We had our buddy Stu on for our 3rd episode, and that happened on his end, in the sound recorded, and I gave him such a hard time for it. And then on our last episode with Giles, I did it. So that's why you see me sitting back like this. Because
he's trying to make sure he's not close to the microphone.
Because my headphones kept bleeding in, and I didn't realise until I was editing back. I was like, oh, that's really echoey. And then I muted our audio, and I was like, his audio is better than ours.
He was the guest, but it sounded like he was the host.
My brother actually asked. He actually asked me, you know, he's like, was he in the room with you? I was like, no.
Yeah, he's just got a better system than us.
We find that every time we sit down to do a podcast and we're like, we don't need to wear our headphones this time, we'll just go with it. That's when we have a shit ton of like clicks or something crazy like that comes in, and that's just always how it goes.
Yeah.
Jesse did say that at one point. He's like, why have you got a headphone in? You remember what happened the last time you didn't have your headphones in? You're like, okay, fine. So on that, I mean, I imagine you're probably very much like me. There's a lot of learning as you go, and things that you know in the first 7 months, stuff that you did in early episodes you would never do again and stuff. Is there any sort of tips or tricks that you've picked up as you've gone along that you can?
You know, I guess the only thing I would say is just I think it took us a while to find our niche as in, what was the exact format of the show going to be? Because I think over time, the more you listen to it, you realize the show becomes actually a looser and looser format over time, I think. And we have kind of landed on that looser format as opposed to we had more strict things in mind. So I guess my only thing is just let the show evolve naturally. Your conversations are going to go where they're going to go. And, part of what makes a show interesting is going places other people, don't go. So we always entertain our tangents because we never know where that's gonna lead us, as opposed to, whatever we were supposed to talk about.
No, I like that idea. And I think that's what's happening with us as well, is we have evolved from our first one where it was just us two. And then,
I don't even know if I want to listen to that back ever.
Yeah.
I just get this weird feeling I'm going to listen to it back and be like, what were we doing?
Yeah.
Well, but there is a bit of finding your feet and
exactly.
And even like on the Buff Geek podcast, your role specifically evolved from
the man in
keyboard
the chair.
man. Yeah, you were the Ned to my Spidey, or to Johnny's Spidey, and then it evolved into. It's Steve! Hashtag it's Steve. We've not said that yet tonight. Hashtag it's Steve. Hashtag it's Steve. Remember, hashtag it's Steve. There you go.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I had no intent when I was invited on first. I very much thought I was just going to be like, guy in the chair, fact checking, giving them a help. I had a big monitor up so that anything I was typing in the computer they could see as they were talking away, and I had no intention of talking at any point. And then right at the end, they're like, what was it you said? I can't remember exactly.
You want to sign off, Steve, or something like that.
But tell everyone who you are. I was just like, just had no. I just was not expecting it.
It's beautiful. I think that was my exact words when it happened. Beautiful.
Oh, it was terrible.
And we talk about it on every single podcast because Steve's gone from that to this. Where, he's running 2 podcasts, features on a 3rd podcast, so...
it's almost too much.
For us.
But that's, you just get more confident with it through time anyway. It's the same with anything you do, it just becomes, you just get easier.
Yeah, I go back and listen to our first episode, and the amount of ums and pauses and things like that. As I listen on, I'm like, wow, these conversations float so much better, and they work so much better than our original ones. We've discussed taking down our first episode, but we decided to leave it up because we felt like we wanted people to be able to hear where we were as compared to where we are now, because I think it's I think we both improved quite a bit, our conversations at least.
I think that's all the kind of... Is that all the questions we've got? Did we talk about inspirations?
No, we haven't done that one. Yeah. Far away.
Alright, okay, so from the podcast, and then you decided to get going with it, but is there anything out there that inspires you to try something new, or just to keep going with it? Or was there a sort of catalyst in the first instance that set you off on the podcasting journey?
I did a podcast about 3 years ago with a friend, and that was pretty short-lived, I'd say.
Right.
And then Jesse and I were working together, and he mentioned wanting to do one, and so we kind of met up and got coffee a couple times and talked about what we could maybe make happen. And I think why we landed on this idea of doing something very free and very open, because that's how both of us are. We try and be very open people, so we wanted to do something that would allow for us to be ourselves in our entirety and not have to put on a face. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And I think that's all the questions. So we do another segment. We do a segment where we ask you to sort of signal boost something, so it doesn't have to be podcast related necessarily, but maybe movies you like, or a band you like, or anything at all, something that you're interested in, games you play, things like that. So is there anything you want to give a shout out to or a signal boost to?
Just randomly plug something I'm into?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. There's a great guy out there making great music called Amigo the Devil. He's pretty small right now, but he makes great, like, kind of creepy Halloweeny folk music, and it's great. So I would definitely.
Is that Amigo as in AMIGO?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Amigo the Devil. I just
like
the name.
Minute. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm intrigued already. No, that's cool. Yeah, Amigo. Right, we'll go and we'll see what he's saying in a minute. Right, so yeah, that's probably my word. We're 56 minutes. So I want to thank you again for coming on. Just please go and everyone who's listening, go and check him and Jesse out in Round Earthers Society podcast.
Say that again, slower.
The Round Earthers Society podcast.
Good boy.
Did it way too fast. Apologies.
It's like the Round Earthers Society podcast.
It's excitable funny.
4 words.
Not one. One continues.
I just want to do a quick sort of shout out section. I want to give a massive shout out to the Britpod scene for asking us to be a part of their amazing community this week. Particular shout out to Stacey from Rough Giraffe podcast and Carla from Theme Park Films podcast for making it happen. Also, we've mentioned them a few times, but a quick shout out to Stu, Kev and Paul for helping keep his team going over the last 3 months. And I'll just do the where we're at, unless you want to do them.
No, I'm going to give Zach the lead on that first. So excellent. Where can everyone find you if you want to shout out all your socials and?
Sure. We're on. You can listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, all Stitcher, all the big ones. And then you can find us on Twitter at RES Podcasts, Facebook.com/RES Podcasts, and obviously people can always get in touch with us on Facebook or through email, which is at the top of every show. So
you can find us at fcpod.net. We've got our website up and running now. We did talk we talked about it before. You can also find us at Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at fcpodnet. And you know what, if you like what you've heard tonight and think, I'd love to buy these guys a beer, then we have the kind of long distance solution for you. So if you visit www.patreon.com/fcpodnet, you can help us to keep chatting to amazing guests such as Zach and producing great news shows such as Inside the Ogre's Cavern and the American Football Cast. You can find me at DStoby and at Buffgeek Podcast, and I've already said at FCPodnet. I need to.
We've got like too many Twitters.
Yeah, I need to get that handle. I might get that handle at everything.
At everything, yeah.
I'm sure
just
it's been taken, but I'm going to buy
it. And just thanks again for listening. You can catch me on Twitter at WisePranker or on Facebook and Instagram at Stephen Houserath. Thanks again, and we'll hear you next time.